Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 268th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the MSP studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron.
A little bit mixed emotions.
A little bit of mixed emotions. Yeah, we're a little. We're coming off an announcement here, pretty fresh.
A little bit of a letdown earlier.
Yeah,
We could just get that out of the way first.
get out of the way.
Just right now. Not going to take long.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants us to dwell on this too much.
Ryan Wingo picked Texas. Ugh.
I'm a little surprised.
I'm a lot surprised, honestly. I was, if you were watching the broadcast or whatever, watching it live or paying attention to Twitter or anything the last few hours, it's been a mess. Texas was supposedly coming on strong late last night. They were trying to make moves.
There was actually something to the chaos that was going on today.
Well, my question, I guess, is, and maybe we never know this, but like, was how real was Ryan Wingo to Mizzou ever? Because that felt like the realest thing ever.
Yeah.
A week ago.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like every possible thing we wanted to see in his recruitment kind of was lining up.
Yeah.
And like, he moved his recruitment up, and the coaches had been, pretty like indirect, pretty obviously like tweeting about him and stuff. And I don't know.
He had been in the games.
Yeah.
Offense has been doing its thing.
Yes.
Everything seemed good. But then right before the announcement, it was like, oh, Texas is talking about huge NIL money. And I was just thinking, like, I was just buying the Mizzou spin on all of it and creating some of it in my own head of like, yeah, you got to really see what Mizzou's best NIL deal is. So you got to say that Texas is coming with something good. And, you don't want it to be a foregone conclusion and nobody tunes into your ceremony and nobody's talking about it on social media and stuff. You want to kind of drum up some excitement there. So I get all that. No big deal.
Yeah.
But it was real, and he picked Texas.
I unfortunately feel like Oklahoma in like Waneri's commitment, just being blindsided by that a little bit. But I don't know, man. It kind of sucks. Ryan Wingo's dad was interviewed after, and in like the most annoying way possible, he was like, it's not over till signing day. Like the father of the recruit who just recruited somewhere, he was kind of had a grin on his face, like with Frank Cusimano, I believe, he was doing the interview, and he's like, it's not over till signing day, and then like, okay, just stop.
Yeah, that
please.
was when I didn't make it that far into the broadcast to see any of those interviews afterwards.
Stop trolling us and let us go on with our lives.
The good news is, if I want to keep spinning this thing, Mizzou is not in a bad spot at wide receiver. You never, you always want to have a 5-star pick your team, but we got the number one defensive line recruit.
Yeah, give me Waneri 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, if I had to choose. So we'll move on from that. We've got more important stuff to talk about. We are going to be talking about basketball for the first time in a while because those games are right around the corner, and they just got done with their media days and stuff like that. So there's a lot to talk about there. Obviously, we'll talk about the South Carolina game and your 7-1 Missouri Tigers and what sort of the outlook looks like the rest of the way with the big Georgia game coming up. And we'll pick the SEC games. Before we do all of that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review wherever you listen to us, and you can, of course, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Shout out to our newest supporter on Patreon, the name, Producer Cam Fan.
It's not me.
I know it's not you.
Me.
I know who it is. It's not you. So Producer Cam Fan, thanks for supporting on Patreon. And
what an honor.
Wow.
Yeah.
We really need to get this camera.
We need to get this camera
your very
going.
own fan.
We need to test it out a little bit.
Wow.
You're the only one of the three of us that like has an actual fan.
An official fan.
That's like dedicated just to you.
Probably my only one, but
Hey,
I'll take it.
it's one more than us. Yeah, you can support on Patreon, just like producer Cam Fan. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start off with basketball. And there is if you're not ready for basketball, that's okay. If you're still in football mode, that's totally fine. Skip ahead to the football section. This basketball bit will be here in 2 weeks. It'll be here in a month when you want to come back and hear about all the players. But
How to take advantage of the bye week.
Exactly. Take advantage of the bye week. And there's a lot of basketball information out. And the first game is November 6th. So it's right around the corner. And as fun as this football season has been, having the football team and the basketball team good at the same time, that could really be something.
Oh, boy.
Basically, I'm thinking we'll just kind of talk about the players. I've got it ordered from freshmen, or ordered by class, starting with freshmen, and then getting to the returning seniors from last year's squad. And we'll just kind of give a rundown of the roster and, just kind of talk about who we think are going to be the most impactful players. But with any of that, you do have to talk about last year a little bit and set the table. Of course, last year was Denis Gates' first season with Missouri. Took him to the NCAA tournament, 24-9 regular season record, 11-7 in conference play. That was good for fourth in the conference, got the double bye in the SEC tournament, and got us our first NCAA tournament win in 10 years. Is that the right number?
Yeah, I think so.
So obviously, I think exceeded everyone's expectations. Everyone outside of the basketball program, I think he exceeded our expectations. Yeah. Any thoughts on year one?
Yeah, I mean, in a good way, it almost feels like Denis Gates has been here forever.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like just you saying, like in his first season,
yes.
Like what?
Yeah.
Feels like he's been here for a really long time, but in a good way because it feels like he's built something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, it was amazing what they did last year. To see the development individually with like Kobe Brown and Demoy Hodge and some of those guys, and then of course how they just gelled as a team and did something that hasn't been done in a really long time. And so I think we were all pleasantly surprised by what we saw.
Yeah, and that's a good point you made about feels like he's been here a while because like the development of someone like Kobe Brown. It's kind of like Kobe Brown is a Denis Gates player. In my mind, if I'm looking back at Mizzou basketball history in a couple of years, Kobe Brown is always going to be tied to Denis Gates in my mind, even though they were just together one season. I want to talk about the departures a little bit, starting with Kobe Brown. We will be missing his almost 16 points per game from last year, 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and that 45% shooting from three that kind of came out of nowhere. That was one of the bigger surprises of the season. And losing Kobe to the NBA draft, he was a first rounder and had made the team with the Clippers. So just like a dream scenario for him going back to this time last year, basically. That's just huge shoes to fill there that, on any given season, who knows if you have a guy that can do what he did last year. And then to add to that, Demoy Hodge, another 15 points per game, 2.5 steals per game, and another 40% three-point shooter. And his volume, he shot over 200 threes on the season. Those two guys right there are going to be hard to replace.
Yeah, that's definitely the story of this season, is just replacing those two guys. How in the world do you try to fill the production that's gone now? So that's going to be pretty fascinating.
Especially scoring.
Yeah.
DeAndre Golston is no longer, or he graduated, ran out of eligibility. He had 11 points per game last year. Of course, Isaiah Mosley only appeared in 14 games last year, but he averaged 10 points per game. Trey Gomillion, some impactful minutes. And obviously, Coach Gates trusted him a lot last year in some big spots. Mohamed Diarra transferred to NC State, and Ronnie DeGray transferred to Wichita State. So a lot of guys that contributed moving on that will not be back. But we add a pretty nice 3-man freshman class and a slew of transfers. And just looking through this list, it's just going to be another intriguing start to the basketball season as we kind of figure out what everybody's role is. And we were talking about a little bit before we started recording, like, okay, what kind of idea do we have about how all these pieces fit together? And it is a little bit just up in the air. And we kind of decided I don't know how much reason there is to really try to figure that out too much, because I'm guessing there's going to be 9 or 10 guys that are getting some decent playing time early as they try to fill out or figure out what the rotations are going to be like for conference play.
Mm-hmm.
But we can get started with the freshmen here. First off, we have guard Anthony Robinson from Tallahassee, Florida, 6'2", 3-star player, number 150 in his class. Jordan Butler from Greenville, South Carolina, 7 foot, 4-star player, number 131 in the class. And Trent Pierce, forward from Tulsa, Oklahoma, 6'10" on the official roster on mutigers.com. 4-star player, number 84 in his class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. Obviously, we know there's a potential signing class this year that might, overshadow this one coming in. But I'm pretty satisfied with this 3-man freshman class coming in, especially with the size in Jordan Butler and the size combined with the scoring ability that we've been hearing about from Trent Pierce.
Yeah, I think this 3-man class has the potential to be sneaky good for sure. And it feels like they really found a diamond in the rough potentially with Trent Pierce and just his the ceiling that he has as a player and just the skill set he has at 6'10". I think we were looking at, we'll get to this, but we were looking at who might start, and he's 6'10", but I don't really see him starting at center necessarily, because I just don't really think that's his game. You're gonna see him playing everywhere, and Jordan Butler might end up being kind of like the one that at least I personally kind of forget about a little bit, but might have the best chance to start even just based on his skill set. So there's so much up in the air for this class, like in a good way. I think there's so much that they can contribute this year.
Yeah, I mean, like if you have Pierce and Butler at the 4 and 5 spot, maybe not as freshmen, but imagine next year or the year after, assuming they're both still around, having 2 guys 6'10" or taller that are just blocking every shot anytime anybody comes into the paint. And like if you have a stretch 4, Pierce would have no trouble guarding like a stretch 4 on the perimeter and making their shots difficult. So, and with Robinson, I feel like he will kind of take on more of the traditional freshman role of probably getting a little bit of mop-up minutes in some of the blowouts, or maybe a little bit more run in a game that Missouri should win, and you kind of want to see what you have in some of the younger guys. But I do see him as a little bit more of a developmental guard, especially considering the seniors that we have with Sean East and Nick Honor, their ability to play point guard. We shouldn't need to go much deeper than those 2 guys as primary ball handler. And I'm excited for Robinson to be able to sort of work behind those 2 and get a feel for the system and just the speed of college basketball.
Yeah, there's so much experience on this team where the young guys maybe aren't going to be depended on a lot this year, which is a good thing. And we saw those Conzo Martin teams of old where the freshmen needed to come in and like immediately be, the best player on the team because they were the most talented and all that stuff. So high expectations that were not met very often, if ever. And hopefully these freshmen are not going to be held to that kind of expectation in year one. But I think Trent Pierce especially is a guy that, he's got Noah Carter in front of him in a position that he's probably going to be best suited for at kind of the stretch 4. But, obviously Noah Carter will be gone after this season. So maybe Trent Pierce is a guy that you're kind of building around next year.
Yeah. And with Trent Pierce, he in particular just reminds me of the tall, long-armed wings from Florida State. And I can honestly, especially with some of the buzz from scouts and people that cover college basketball, he seems like the type of guy who gets some play as a freshman, shines a few times, and then as a sophomore just goes crazy and then goes to the NBA. Like, I feel like his ceiling is contributor as a freshman, all conference type player as a sophomore, and goes to the NBA.
Yeah. I think he's got that in his range of outcomes for sure. And well, where did they go this summer on like a
Jamaica?
Mm-hmm. He was like leading the team in points in those exhibition games. So I don't know. I think you might be right. We might be seeing him putting up a lot of shots this year.
And his floor is like, a 3 or 4 year player who's just like incredibly solid for multiple seasons. So I just feel like they have a really good get in Trent Pierce. I'm excited to see him play. Moving on to just the one sophomore, we have Aiden Shaw returning. He's listed at 6'8". He played about 10 minutes per game last year, had a season high 7 points in the 3-point win over Arkansas. Wasn't asked to do a whole lot. Obviously, we know about his athleticism. Had a couple big blocked shots in some clutch moments. He feels like the type of guy that could make a jump into his sophomore season. But at the same time, how well does his just insane athleticism, if he doesn't have much of a 3-point shot, if he's not super crafty around the basket, like how many minutes can you afford to give a guy who's like sort of a slasher / shot blocking specialist who's just super athletic? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely room for him, but I feel like he's going to need to show a little bit more offensively when you have guys who like Trent Pierce behind him who are going to be gunning for some minutes at the forward spot.
For sure. That's basically exactly what I was going to say about him is he's going to have to expand his offensive game to be able to see the minutes he probably wants to see. I mean, you're not really relying on him to like pull up and shoot but probably not create his own shot either. He's probably not like slashing to the rim very often. So yeah, how does he fit offensively, and what is he going to do to kind of take that step this year? Because we've seen the videos, we saw the plays last year. Yeah, he's very gifted, and
that dunk in the Kansas game.
Yes, came in the clutch for sure in some big moments with some big plays, but are going to need to see a little bit more consistency in other areas.
Yeah, and obviously he's gained some weight, gained a lot of muscle, but I just don't quite see him bullying guys around on the block in the SEC this year. But still excited for what he can become. Again, we're like so used to just needing underclassmen to come in and run the show and like play meaningful minutes and start most games that it's a luxury to have a guy like Aiden Shaw who you don't have to rely on as much until he's a little bit more polished. We've got 3 juniors on this squad. We've got Caleb Brown, Kurt Lewis, and Tamar Bates. And which of those 3 guys jump out at you? You want to talk about a little bit?
Yeah, I think Tamar Bates was a guy out of high school I really wanted Missouri to land, and obviously that was pre-Denis Gates, so maybe it was just meant to be that he took this route and came to Missouri a couple of years later. But I really think he is going to see a lot of playing time. I don't know, in a similar way about Aiden Shaw. Well, maybe not in a similar way, but he probably isn't as much of an offensive threat as some of these other guys that are going to play the similar position. But he is an excellent defender, and for that very reason alone, he's going to have to be out there a lot.
Yes, I agree. He played in 67 games over 2 seasons with Indiana. Originally from Kansas City, Kansas. It was a big recruiting miss for Konzo when that happened. We were pretty disappointed. He originally committed to Texas, right? Yeah.
Bro. Just had to bring up Texas right now.
Forget I said anything. He averaged 6 points per game in 20 minutes per game last year with Indiana. Shot 37% from 3. So if we can get like 3-and-D guard play out of him, guard wing play, I could see him eating up a lot of minutes for sure. And then Kurt Lewis is a transfer from John A. Logan Junior College. He played 2 seasons at Eastern Kentucky before that. Averaged 10 and 5 in 56 games, 10 points, 5 rebounds in 56 games at Eastern Kentucky. But then at John A. Logan, he averaged 14 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block per game. And that John A. Logan team won the Junior College National Championship. And in the semifinals of that tournament, he had 27 points, I think. So he was balling out at the JUCO level, and kind of did a little bit of everything for them. I mean, 4 assists for a guy that you consider to be a scorer mostly is pretty impressive. He's listed at 6'5", just like Tamar Bates. So I could see those two competing for minutes, with maybe Lewis giving you a little bit more of that, creating a shot for himself and, more of that scoring prowess, whereas Tamar Bates is more of that 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a question mark. You never know what guys are going to be like when they come from JUCO. Sean East came from JUCO, was one of the best JUCO players in the country, and he definitely had his moments and was pretty consistent for Missouri last year. I think Kurt Lewis could be that. I don't think he's not going to come in and be the star necessarily like he was at Johnny Logan, obviously, but he's got the measurables, he has the length, and I definitely think he could carve out a little bit of a role.
And when you're talking about, needing, maybe 5 or 6 guys to kind of chip in and replace some of that scoring production from Kobe Brown and Demoy Hodge, I think Lewis is going to be one of those guys. And then the last junior on the team, Caleb Brown, he returns after putting his name in the transfer portal earlier in the offseason. He's listed as a 6'7" guard, 6'7", 245. Averaged 8 minutes per game in the 11 games that he played in last year. Got a little bit of play early, didn't do much, but Coach Gates has been raving about him and said he's the most improved player on their team this offseason or over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, he's maybe a little bit of the Swiss Army knife in a way. Like, he really is. He's a great passer.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy of his size, he's a good ball handler, and can even maybe bring the ball up a little bit. Can play some guard and can probably bully some guys a little bit. So, I don't know how much development we're talking about here, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Caleb Brown be able to play some meaningful minutes. And obviously we know Kobe wasn't a star right away either, and so he was a good high school player, and I guess, sometimes it takes guys a couple of years to kind of get into the weight room and, experience playing the game at the Division I level, and you never know.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just got a unique skill set with his playmaking ability at 6'7". I would love to see some packages where he's like posting up some smaller guards and then creating plays for others, or if he could get a little bit of post play. I could see it working. And then moving on to the seniors. We've got a bunch of seniors. I think only 2 of these guys have any potential eligibility after this season. And that's always a little bit fuzzy, so maybe nobody does, but I'm pretty sure at least 2 of these guys have an additional year if needed.
At what point do we does the COVID year just run out of the system?
I think it's got to be after this season.
I think we're getting pretty close to that.
Yeah.
That'll be nice. I mean, I don't know. It's been nice to have the extra year where guys can come back and like really squeeze out as much experience as we can.
Yeah.
But for the sake of just like knowing where we are with like the
how many scholarships are available,
the classes and stuff, it's a little bit of a mess.
But since you brought that up, one thing that I've noticed actually with this Mizzou football team that we've been watching all season, and now seeing some of these guys get interviewed at the media days events, we've just got some grown men on these teams, just like very mature, very workmanlike in their processes and interviews, and several of these guys that we'll talk about as seniors gave interviews to the media, and I was just really impressed with, they're just very focused, and they know what they're here to do. They're not here to, even Connor Vanover, we'll talk about it, but he said he thought he was done playing college basketball. He wanted to try to do something professionally. He was done going to class and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that's what we'll miss once this COVID year situation is over with.
Yeah.
These guys are just very mature and know what it means to be on a good team and work together for a common goal.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty impactful and tangible, actually, is just having experienced players who, just conduct themselves in that way and in a way that a winning team would. And I think that goes a long way.
First senior here is a transfer from Campbell University, Jesus Caralero Martin. I might go with
That's pretty good.
JCM.
JCM.
Yeah, for short. Coach called him Zeus in the interview.
That's fine too.
Yeah. But JCM forward listed at 6'7", originally from Spain, played 4 seasons at Campbell, started 38 games. Last season, he was injured after 5 games, only played 5 games, lost the rest of the season to injury. In those 5 games, he was shooting 50% from the field and had a little bit of an uptick in three-point shooting. If that carries over, he's a little bit undersized, but he was playing the 5 most of the time at Campbell, had good assist numbers, only listed at 6'7", and just like, I don't know, you get a guy from Campbell, it's kind of like, I don't know, why are we doing this? Is this guy going to be ready to come play in the SEC?
Yeah.
And I think he's another guy kind of like Caleb Brown who just has a little bit of a unique skill set where you could play matchups in a way that he could just take advantage. And I think he has a very mature game. He's very crafty. And with the right matchups, I think he could be a problem for some defenses.
Yeah, you mentioned he is from Spain. I mean, I feel like his play style is just very European. Like it's very, he's just very mobile for his size and crafty, good passer.
He was bringing the ball up some. He was playing a little point forward for Campbell at times.
Yeah, he's a very interesting player. And I'm honestly one of the most intriguing players as far as like I just have no idea how they're going to use him.
Yeah, truly. He could start every game at the 5. He could play 12 minutes per game, and we kind of forget about him late in conference season.
Yeah.
Like the variance there is pretty crazy. Another senior on the list, Mabor Majak, 7'2" center. He is one of 2 players on the roster who are actually labeled as centers. Everybody else is just a guard or forward.
And for that reason, he might get in some games.
Exactly. Originally from South Sudan, came over with Gates from Cleveland State. Played a little bit last year in some actually huge spots against Mississippi State and Tennessee.
Very much matchup based.
Yes, absolutely.
But he held his own.
Yeah. And he was basically thrown out there to absorb a couple fouls and grab some rebounds when nobody else could. And often last year we saw nobody being able to grab rebounds. But he is back, and then that brings us to a few more transfers. We have John Tonje, 6'6" guard, listed as a guard. I wasn't sure what they would do with that, but definitely a wing player. Originally from Omaha, Nebraska, played 4 seasons at Colorado State, started 33 games for them last year, played 31 minutes per game, averaged 14 points, 5 rebounds, shot 39% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. So I feel like this is a guy you are bringing in to give us some offense immediately. And he was an early addition when the transfer portal opened. It was just like, portal's open, boom, John Tonje is committed to the Tigers.
Yeah, for sure. He's athletic wing for sure. I hope that he can kind of help with the rebounding issue. I don't know if that problem's going away this year, just based on the style that they're probably going to play with.
Yeah.
But maybe he's definitely a big guard that can get in there and hopefully help with the rebounding.
He was asked what attracted him to Coach Gates and Missouri in the portal. He said, "This type of defense is something I want to be a part of."
We got a brand already.
Yeah, I love it. Next up, senior transfer Caleb Grill, 6'3" guard, originally from Wichita, started his career at Iowa State, transferred to UNLV, and then followed Coach TJ Otzelberger back to Iowa State. Started in 22 games last year, averaged 31 minutes per game, shot 37% from 3 on 6 attempts per game. And he had an interesting quote talking about making the decision to come to Missouri. He said the decision was not about basketball. It was about feeling like family, which multiple players.
Wow, that's very touching.
Multiple players said they liked the family vibe that Coach Gates and company bring.
It's a family vibe, and also I bet I have the green light to shoot 10 threes a game.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Just like be insanely aggressive with steals and green light all day long.
I mean, literally. There's so much 3-point production that's missing from last year's team, and Grill's the best shooter on the team. And I'm pretty sure that was the pitch. Like, hey, we're a family atmosphere, but also you can launch all game long.
Again, that'll just be one of the coolest things to see early in the non-conference season is like, who's taking all these shots?
Yeah.
Because there are shots missing from last year that need to be made up for.
And there's some fun highlights of him at Iowa State just getting hot. Like, he's a little bit streaky, and like he'll just hit like 7 threes in a game or something.
Yeah. I think I saw one where like 3 possessions in a row, he made a 3, just like little 9-0 run by himself.
Yeah.
Another transfer that everybody's heard of by now, Connor Vanover, 7'5" center. He played 1 season at Cal, 2 at Arkansas, and then 1 most recently at Oral Roberts.
He was actually really good at Oral Roberts.
Yes, very good at Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
Developed his 3-point shot a little bit more. He had that a little bit at Arkansas. Played more for Arkansas as a sophomore, then didn't play a whole lot as a junior, hence transferring. But now he's back in the SEC, this time playing for the good guys. And he said he did not think he would be returning to college this past offseason. And then he's another one that talked about the family vibe.
If anything, he's just great for the memes. Like, just a former Arkansas player. Like, he's just a unique looking guy. He's 7'5".
That's true. You don't see 7'5" every day.
You definitely don't.
Coach Gates said he was like trying to, I don't know if it was a warning or he was trying to give the Mizzou fans a heads up. When Vanover is in the game, he's out there to shoot threes, Coach said. So don't be complaining that he's not like down by the basket. He said when Vanover is out there, if he's not shooting threes, he's going to be on the bench.
Man, that's the kind of thing like that makes me think like Trent Pierce is just going to start because it's like we don't even have a big man. We don't need one. Yeah. Like we just have 5 guards.
Yeah. Play 5 out. Yeah. Everybody's launching threes. And
that's so funny though that he just was like, this guy's tall, but he's not going to play tall guy stuff. He's not going to. He's going to do tall guy stuff.
Yeah. He's going to do...
We all just shoot threes here.
The tall guy thing he's going to do is shoot the ball where nobody can even
Nobody's
think about contesting it.
I mean, that's what he did at Arkansas a little bit. I remember him hitting a few threes against us one game.
And if he's gonna hit it, there's literally nothing you can do because he just shoots over you.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
And if he misses, no one's rebounding.
True. Just get
They're
back.
running.
All right. So then that brings us to the last 3 guys here. In my opinion, the heart and soul of this Mizzou basketball team for this coming season. And it starts off with Nick Honor, 5'10" guard, started his career at Fordham, played 2 seasons at Clemson, and was a vital part of last year's successful Missouri run to the NCAA tournament. Excited for him to be back. He had some big shots and big moments. Seemed like he was just always making the right play. He was never a guy that you were like, oh, if Nick Honor had just played a little bit better, we would have won that game. It just never happened, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, we said it numerous times last year, but some of those, again, going back to the pre-Denis Gates era, some of those Conzo teams needed a Nick Honor so badly on their team. Just somebody that doesn't need to come in and be the star, can give you big plays, but doesn't have to. Just is primarily there to control the game, make good decisions, get the playmakers the ball, and man, I really see him playing like 38 minutes a game.
Are you saying some of those Conzo teams needed a point guard?
That is what I was trying to say. Yes.
Yeah, but no, you're exactly right.
It's like a bunch of 6'7" dudes who can't shoot.
Yeah. I feel like every year I think about like guys who I would just, if I could just slot them into their position for the next 10 years, I would take Nick Honor, the starting point guard for the Missouri Tigers. I feel like he's the type of college point guard that you put the right pieces around him. You don't need him to do anything crazy, and your team's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Another guard, this time 6'3" senior Sean East. He had an interesting path to Mizzou. Started out at UMass, then Bradley, then John A. Logan Junior College. Then last year, played 23 minutes per game last year, despite only starting once. And that's kind of a storyline that's on my mind heading into the season is I could kind of see them being like, okay, Sean, you're our sixth man. We don't necessarily need to start the game with 2 point guards out there, but they ran Honor and East on the floor together plenty last season, which I kind of love 2 point guards out there at the same time, just generally. But I don't know. That'll be an interesting storyline is will he be the sixth man and do kind of the same type of thing he did last year? Or do they start 2 point guards most games?
Yeah, he was a little bit inconsistent as far as like scoring production. He was very stable as far as just minutes played. Some games he would really show up and score a lot, and then other games he really didn't as much. So, I think now that you mention that, really, I would probably that'd be my guess is that he's six man, still plays 25, 30 minutes a game, is obviously an incredibly important role, but maybe doesn't start. Not that it really matters that much. If you're playing, you're probably still playing more than starter minutes almost.
Exactly.
At that point.
Yeah. Now I can't help but think, if I think of Sean East, I can't help but think of a few frustrating times last year where we were like right there in a close conference game. And like, this seems like oddly specific, but I just very much remember him driving to the basket, getting there, and then not really knowing what to do, and just
like picking up his dribble under the basket.
Yes, that happened a few times, and there's just a few little things like that where you're like, see, he, I don't know, he just needed some time to get used to SEC basketball. I feel like
he does have kind of that like high arching shot off the backboard that he does sometimes.
Yes,
it's kind of interesting. Like he needed to do that a few more times.
Yeah,
because there was a point where
so far in.
Yes, obviously at this point, if this is the thing that we are associating with him, yes, it was happening pretty frequently, I think, where it was like, all right, you got to pass sooner or shoot it.
Yeah.
But
don't get stuck down there.
Yep.
Obviously, that's a incredibly correctable thing, though,
that
if he can get over that hump and contribute more, I think we'll be in good shape. And then last, I kind of feel like this guy is the one that we're going to be relying on to eat up a lot of those minutes and points from the departures, but we have senior forward Noah Carter listed at 6'6", 235, played 3 seasons at Northern Iowa, started 20 games last year from Mizzou, shot 49% from the floor, 32% from 3, and he is the highest scoring returning player.
Yeah.
That was on the Mizzou's roster last year.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree. I think Noah Carter's probably the most important player on the team this year, and I think he could take the Kobe Brown jump potentially. I don't know about being like a first-round NBA draft pick or something, but I think somebody that can average 17, 18 a game, but he's going to have to be more efficient. He's going to have to shoot better than 32% from 3.
Yeah.
But he is going to shoot a lot.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to improve on defense because I can remember him being a pretty massive liability at times. And if you are a liability on defense, there are guys that will put in there instead of you, even if you're, bringing some to the table offensively. So I think he's going to have to figure that out to be able to kind of get up to that 35-minute a game mark or something like that. But I think he can do it.
Yeah. No, I look at him as a guy who you got to hope coming back for a senior season, no more eligibility left. You didn't play as much as maybe you would have last year because you had Kobe Brown in front of you. You got to be looking at that as a huge opportunity to do what he did last year. Sean East, another guy, only shot 22% from 3 last year. Gotta get those numbers up a bit. So if I'm looking at like starting 5 plus 3 major contributors, it's easy to put Nick Honor at the 1 spot. I'm going to put Sean East at the 6 spot as a 6th man, first guy off the bench. And then there's just so many different ways they could do this. Like you could pretty easily go with Trent Pierce at the 4. Or you could go Trent Pierce at the 5, Noah Carter at the 4, Tanjay at the 3, Caleb Grill or Tamar Bates at the 2. You got a pretty explosive lineup there offensively.
You want to hear my starting lineup?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Nick Honor, Caleb Grill, Tamar Bates, Noah Carter, and starting at the 5, not really the 5, but just starting as the 5th player, Trent Pierce.
He would jump center in that situation.
He absolutely would.
There's really nothing wrong with that. So then you'd have East coming off the bench. You'd have Tanjay coming off the bench. That's one I feel like maybe he starts over Bates at the 3
you could definitely
potentially.
Swap those for sure.
I really do like East as your 6th man.
Sneaky potential starter at the 5, Jordan Butler.
I agree with you there. Honestly, though, like between Butler, JCM, Vanover, like
you like Zeus though.
Yeah.
I'm
just saying we got options there. We got options at the 5. And then Kurt Lewis is a little bit of a wild card where he absolutely could be a scoring threat who grabs one of those starting 5 spots. But I mean, the starting 5 that you've given us, I'm going to swap Tanjay in for Bates, and that gives us 4 seniors with just incredible amount of, what's it called when you've done it before? Experience. And then the freshman Pierce. I like that. Give me the 4 seniors plus the freshman.
Okay, so we just talked about 15 players. Give me 4 guys who just probably won't really play much this year.
Oh,
that's almost harder to do somehow.
Anthony Robinson, Majak, Caleb Brown. How many do you want?
1 more.
Vanover?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But, I mean, if that's the bottom, if that's like the end of your bench, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
And Coach Gates, of course, was talking up all the walk-ons as well. There's like, I keep wanting to call him, I got to find his name, because I swear he's a reincarnation of another Mizzou player from years past. We have a freshman walk-on named Danny Stevens, and I keep wanting to think of him as, now I can't think of his first name, Feldman.
I literally was about to say Danny Feldman.
Danny Feldman. Just a random walk-on from like 10 years ago.
I literally was thinking Danny Feldman, and then I was like, I don't even know if he played for Mizzou. I just like know who that is. I can think of his face.
Look, Danny Stevens. When I saw that, I was like, wait a second, that's Danny Feldman.
Reincarnated.
Yes.
That is, I wish I would have said Danny Feldman, but if that was not who you were thinking of, it just would have sounded like the dumbest thing ever.
So Danny Feldman's there. You know? He's good.
He's back.
He's good, people say. All right. So I'm very excited for this team. Very excited to see how the lineups shake up. Early on in the season, there's a plethora of cupcakes on the schedule. So we'll get to see everybody put up some numbers, hopefully. And next week, we will look at that schedule and see how we're feeling. See if we're looking at another NCAA tournament team or if this is a little bit of a reset year or something in between. So stay tuned next week. We'll tell you exactly how good this team is going to be. And with that, we can get back to football. Did you know it's football season?
Yeah.
Kyle, Mizzou being good at football,
it's fun.
It just it lights up my life.
It's incredible. It gives us life.
I've watched so many highlight videos in the last week. I've watched the South Carolina highlights 10 times. I've watched the Kentucky highlights a few more times. I was watching highlights from 2008 just because YouTube was feeding it to me and I was just eating it all.
Yeah.
I've watched too many press conferences of other SEC coaches.
I've been doing that too.
YouTube thinks that's what I want to see, and it's right.
And I love hearing other coaches talk about Mizzou.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what makes college football, every game is so important because there's so few of them, and that's why it makes those losses so heartbreaking sometimes, but I feel like that's what makes the good times even better. It's just because, like, you know, at the rate that we've been going, and hopefully this is, you know, the last 10 years, I pray to God is not how the next 10 years will go. But I mean, the last time we have to look back at that, you know, a time we've done something like this is a literal decade ago. And so these kind of seasons just don't come around, very often. And I'm hoping that trend changes here in the future. But even good programs don't churn out 7-1 starts every year.
Yeah.
And just being able to say we've beaten South Carolina 5 years in a row and just stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, every single game of these series that, you know, have a little bit of history now, and obviously we'll have a lot more history in the future. Every game in every series is so important, and we just got to really enjoy it when we can.
Final score on this one, what was it? 34-12?
Yeah.
And I would argue that one of South Carolina's best plays in the entire game was deferring when they won the toss. And that's just like an automatic 3 and out for Mizzou.
That's true. That was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. So that's all you have to do. Defer. Literally, that was one of their best plays of the game, was the coin toss. Because Missouri goes 3 and out. But then on the second Mizzou possession, we get that deep shot to Luther Burden. He makes a NFL-level catch to go up and get that between two defenders, and a really nicely thrown ball by Brady Cook.
We need a case study on the 3 and outs, though. Like, somebody
get on that.
Somebody that's like been on the football team or something, like with Coach Drinkwitz. Like, is there some kind of script that you guys just don't want to do, or like, is there some kind of script in that first drive that just doesn't work every time?
They're like, we do not like these plays. Let's just go 3 and out. Get us to the second drive.
Up. Yeah, get us to the second drive, and then we'll actually play. Yeah. Then we'll do some stuff. But this first drive, we just got to warm up the punter a little bit.
Picture perfect first half. I mean, we get the big play to Burden. We don't allow South Carolina to do anything on offense. They miss a field goal, which could have changed the momentum a little bit.
Yeah.
And they make a field goal late. But Missouri takes a 24-3 lead into halftime. It's just everything good.
Right. Yeah, it really felt like, man, we just felt like we were so much better than South Carolina in that first half. And in the second half, it didn't feel like that, but I'm pretty sure they just put it in cruise control.
Yeah.
But that first half was incredible.
Cody Schrader running all over him, doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, like 5 to 10 yards a carry.
Yeah. And again, that slowed down a little bit in the second half, but the first half, it was just picture perfect. Again, 24 points. We talked about it before. They scored 25 in the first half against LSU, which was a new Coach Drinkwitz SEC record for points and a half, and it was previously 24 against LSU. So right up there with some of the best halves of football under Coach Drink.
Yeah, they said their little game motto or whatever was Rattler.
Rattle, Rattler.
I would say mission accomplished.
Absolutely.
Rattler's a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He did not look like a good quarterback against Missouri.
No, and that's interesting. So they get into the second half, and South Carolina gets 2 field goals. Missouri fumbles the snap on the punt, and just felt the second half just started to feel off a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we're punting too much, not sustaining drives. South Carolina's putting some points on the board. Mevis does hit a 53-yard field goal, but it all came down to what you're saying, getting after Spencer Rattler and not letting him get them back in this game.
Yeah.
And I think 5 sacks on the game for Missouri's defense. And I was listening to Shane Beamer talk about after the game. He said, or it may have been like later in the week, but he was talking about those sacks, like one of them clearly on the offensive line, one of them clearly on a running back who missed a blitz pickup, one of them clearly on Spencer Rattler for, not taking the check down when he should have or something like that. So the fact that I feel like you do have to keep in mind a little bit that like the South Carolina offense is struggling a little bit. And tell me what you think. I feel like I'm not wanting to get too high on the Missouri defense, not giving up a touchdown, getting 5 sacks.
Yeah.
Getting an interception. I'm trying to not get too high there and just think also South Carolina's offense is not that great.
Missouri took advantage of the opportunity, of the mismatch, the injuries. South Carolina is a little bit of a shell of itself, honestly, and what they were.
The injuries, yeah.
At the beginning of the season. Like their offensive line, they barely have enough offensive linemen to field a team in practice, like a second team in practice. No Juice Wells.
Xavier Legette got hurt in this one.
And so I am not going to lie. When it was like 24-0 or whatever it was, like I was approaching I'm feeling bad for them territory, which is ridiculous, but that's how one-sided that half was.
Yeah.
And it was like, geez, they are a mess right now. Like there was no chance in the world that South Carolina was ever coming back in this game. They just, they're totally spent. Yeah. And so what was your question?
Just like weighing the South Carolina's bad versus Mizzou's defense is good.
Sure.
And going back to the Kentucky game, even obviously a big story in that game was Kentucky just imploding a little bit in all those penalties that they had.
That certainly has to have something to do with the opponent you're playing, I would think. I don't know, man. Rattler's been really good at home. He's been really bad on the road. And so, I don't know. I would just have to say South Carolina they're really struggling. They're in a really tough spot, but Missouri's playing well. They took advantage of it.
Their offense looked a lot better against Florida. Scored scored enough to win that game, basically.
I feel a little embarrassed, actually, and I don't even know why I'm bringing this up because it's embarrassing, but I predicted to South Carolina to really be able to score.
Yeah.
Last week when we talked about them, I think I predicted that they would score 37 points or something like that. Obviously in a loss, but I definitely thought this was going to be a little bit more of a shootout than it ended up being.
Yeah, but we'll take it.
Oh, of course.
And I mean, how often is your defense not giving up a touchdown in an SEC game?
Right. Yeah. Their running back averaged like 2 yards a carry. Like there's just absolutely nothing was happening. There was absolutely no threat whatsoever.
And there was an interesting moment that I wanted to ask you about because South Carolina was down. The score is 27-9. Second half, South Carolina drives down, has first and goal at the Mizzou 5. Just great stand by Mizzou's defense. Incomplete pass, maybe 2 incomplete passes, but then they throw it to the flat, which we've seen go for a touchdown, and we tackle them short. And that brings up 4th and goal from like the 3-yard line. They kicked a field goal to make it 27-12.
Oh yeah, you know what? That's really the thing. Is like I predicted him to score 37 points because I didn't think Shane Beamer was going to come out and play bunker mentality against us.
I mean, that is the most un-Beamer ball thing I've ever heard of.
Beamer ball is just
they kick that field goal. If they score a touchdown there and get the 2-point conversion, you're down 10. 27-17.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be very frustrated by that call to kick it there.
Right. Yeah, they made some very, very conservative and questionable decisions. But he still blamed everybody in the post game.
Yeah, the post game,
including Missouri's facilities.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was going around Twitter, this clip of him talking about where he was giving the press conference. It was honestly a hilarious clip because the Mizzou band is just blaring. He's having to like speak up over the band, like blaring Mizzou's fight song after he just lost, and he's having to like speak up to answer questions about his loss.
After he just lost by 5 touchdowns, and his only response was to kick field goals.
Yeah. And honest, you talk about feeling bad. You were feeling bad in the first half, and you shouldn't have been. I felt bad for the guy in that. He looked so broken in that post game press conference. I was like, wanted to be like, come on, it'll be okay.
It's okay, man. You'll get paid several $1 million to go away.
Yes.
You'll tarnish the Beamer name a little bit, but you'll be rich. It's fine.
Well, Kyle, there was actually a big result of this game, and Mizzou going 7-1, is the fact that in the case of 46-year-old Shane Beamer,
you are the father.
Eli Drinkwitz, you are the father.
That was incredible.
That was confirmed in that game. And the Daddy Drink memes were circling after the game.
Yes, we had a meme prepared, and we wanted to win. We're fans of Missouri. We wanted to win, but there was like an extra 0.5% of how badly we wanted to win just to be able to post that meme. So thank you, producer Cameron. A meme of a picture of Coach Drinkwitz holding his son with a little cast on his foot.
Holding his baby boy.
His baby boy Coach
Shane.
Beamer.
Yeah. And
it made the rounds.
Excellent Photoshop work by producer Cameron there.
I'm pretty sure it ended up on some pretty big podcast.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of it, that SEC show.
SEC Mike on Twitter.
Yeah.
Talking about press conferences, though, Coach Drink had a nice press conference, and they talked to Christian Williams and Cody Schrader, and they, again, talked about it when we were talking about basketball players, but some of these older guys who have been around the block just being locked in on the mindset of we have not shown what we're capable of yet. Coach Drink said that. A reporter asked Christian Williams, how close was this to your guys' best stuff? And he said, not even close. They asked Cody Schrader. He said, not even close. And
I think I have a chance to test that out here in a week.
Exactly. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit like too down on the second half. I think as I was watching it, it was like, come on, offense. Like, what's going on here? Why can't we put 2 good halves together?
Yeah, I was like, should I take a nap? Or like, I think they got this thing under control.
Yeah, there was one moment where it was like, okay, if South Carolina's going to do anything, it's got to be right now. And this was maybe it was when they kicked the field goal, but they looked like they were trying to put a drive together. Rattler hadn't played too terribly, gotten sacked, but he was doing okay. And it was like, okay, are they going to do something right now? And he throws an interception. And that just basically iced it. And Missouri's 7-1. 7-1.
Yep.
We get the bye week at a perfect time. We can gear up for Georgia. After the bye week, Missouri plays number 1 Georgia. Assuming they're number 1, assuming they take care of business this week against Florida.
That game is going to be nuts. 2:30 on CBS. It's going to be incredible. One of the biggest games I can remember in a while.
People were saying biggest game since the last time we were in the SEC championship game.
You can make an argument.
Because, I mean, you beat Georgia. I mean, you don't have... Right now, Missouri controls their own destiny. We're going to get into SEC East talk a little bit here. It's bye week. The SEC East standings, number 1, Georgia, 4-0. They play Florida at home. Number 16, Missouri Tigers, 3-1, lost to LSU. Florida, 3-1, lost to Kentucky, 33-14, plays Georgia. Number 21, Tennessee, is 2-2 in conference play, lost to Florida and lost to Alabama. Missouri's in the driver's seat.
Yeah. If Missouri somehow wins out, they win the SEC East. They go to Atlanta.
That's all you have to do.
In the last year that these divisions will ever exist,
all you have to do is win 4 games.
They will end as the champions of the SEC East.
We've already won 3 games. Just got to win 4 more conference games. Ooh.
Enormous opportunity.
Missouri clinched the SEC East with a win over Arkansas one other time. I'd love to see that happen again. We're not going to talk too much about Georgia just yet. We're going to save that for next week. Just reflecting a little bit more on Missouri's season so far. Brady Cook sitting here with over 2,000 passing yards, 20 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions, completing 70% of his passes. So far, everything we ever could have hoped for. Cody Schrader has run the ball 140 times for over 800 yards and 9 touchdowns. We got to say just real quick what's going on with Schrader's the only running back getting a touch.
Yeah,
in the South Carolina game.
Yeah, I basically was thinking there's no way. I mean, I don't know about no way, but it's unlikely that we're going to be able to continue playing Cody Schrader 100% of the snaps. Like, they're human beings.
Yeah, and he's already been banged up.
He's already been a little bit banged up. We're talking about the potential for injuries, the potential for just kind of wearing down. Like, sometimes in the football season, even some of the best players in the country in college or in NFL, you kind of start to see those guys just wear down. They're not as effective by the end of the year if they're getting a lot of snaps, and I don't want to see that happen to Cody Schrader. In the second half of this game, there's just no reason that Cody Schrader should take every snap against South Carolina in the second half when you're winning by however many points, and they're completely incapable of coming back on you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Pete's legs should be fresh moving forward.
Yeah, he's gotten like 3 carries in the last 3 games or something.
Schrader said in the post-game press conference that he's been spending 12 hours a day in the football facilities getting treatment for his like severely bruised thigh, basically.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean, that seems like just the perfect opportunity to be like, all right, this game is completely like taken care of. Perfect opportunity to get Jamal Roberts some run, get Nate Pete in there. Or just more importantly, give Cody Schrader a little bit of a break.
Yeah. And Drinkwitz said that the game plan going into this game was to get Roberts involved, and that did not happen.
Yeah, that was like an actual thing they said on the broadcast was Jamal Roberts, who is the second string running back today, backing up Cody Schrader. Oh, just kidding. He doesn't have a backup.
Yeah. No backups here. Luther Burden, 61 catches on the season, 905 yards, 6 touchdowns. And I have some rankings here for you as well. Brady Cook, 7th nationally, 2nd in the SEC in passing yards. Cody Schrader, 9th nationally, 1st in the SEC in rushing yards.
And like 40 more attempts than anyone else, but that's okay.
Yeah. Luther Burden, 2nd nationally and 2nd in the SEC in receiving yards. Malik Neighbors takes the top spot on both of those. But Burden, 61 catches, 900 yards, 6 touchdowns. Weiss, 36, 440, and 5 touchdowns for him. And Mookie Cooper, just a very solid 3rd wide receiver here. 28 catches, 359 yards, but no touchdowns. It'll happen. I want to see Mookie Cooper get in the end zone.
Right. It was good to see Luther Burden kind of bounce back from a quiet game against Kentucky. Mookie, I maybe led the team in receptions against South Carolina. And what's interesting is I feel like when we first landed Mookie and maybe that first season, I think a lot of people thought of him as kind of like the burner, like deep threat guy. Like you're going to see him just blow past a defender for a deep touchdown. And I think that's something he can do, but that's not at all how they're really using him this year. He's almost kind of playing like almost like the Barrett Bannister role a little bit, kind of the shorter stuff. And he's doing really, really well with it, kind of making some tough contested catches and getting out in space a little bit. And
making guys miss.
Yeah.
That was something, last year it kind of felt like the way it goes is Mookie Cooper catches the ball and then just immediately gets destroyed by the defender.
Yeah.
Like first defender that touches him just destroys him.
Yeah, he obviously understands his ability in space, and he's kind of doing that Tyreek Hill thing where he catches the ball, immediately turns around and kind of just like assesses where the defender is. Like it's kind of weird. Like he just almost does this little 180 pivot
Yep.
and is able to kind of just move in any direction.
Makes a little bit of room for himself.
From where he catches the ball. Yeah, he almost like steps it back a little bit. Yeah.
But he's been making the first guy miss consistently. He did it several times in the South Carolina game. And to see him sort of taking that next step, that's just, and he'll be back next year. So, oof.
Yeah. I feel like this team is like, in the past, we've had some elite defenses. We've had some really good offenses. And it's like, can you just have both of these be even just decent at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Like that 2015 team, if the offense is even average, like we're probably one of the best teams in the SEC.
Yeah, win 10 games.
This team to me is just a perfect example of like, I don't know that the offense is elite. I don't know that the defense is elite. They're both really, really good. And obviously, like it's so balanced.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's really no weak parts of the team, and I don't know. I feel like that's what you probably want to shoot for every year, and not having any like glaring deficiencies and just being good everywhere. And it's worked out really well.
Yeah, and in the South Carolina game, in the second half, we've had our complaints a little bit with the offense and how they were using Schrader and all this, but the coaching staff afterwards was just talking about like, okay, South Carolina went into this defense that was just the ultimate bend but don't break, and they were just begging Missouri to run the ball, and Missouri saw, hey, we can be successful enough at this to just not have to do much else in the second half to win this game. And when I was a little bit worried, I think Missouri was losing the second half 6-3, 9-3. But even with that lackluster second half, Missouri won the half. Schrader got a touchdown late and really put the game away. There was no need to worry anymore. But I just had to kind of remind myself, like, no, Missouri won both halves.
Yeah.
Despite
just a different strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And one of these days, this strategy could definitely bite you in the butt. But to be able to have a coach who's kind of looking at the bigger picture, even within a single game, and saying, we're done putting stuff on tape. We're done getting guys hurt. We're just going to run the ball. We're going to do whatever to just shorten this game and get out of here against a team that we are a lot better than, at least in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that a few times this year.
Yeah.
Playing not checkers. I always do that. Playing chess, not checkers.
Yes.
Yeah, not checkers. I mix up my
board games.
My board games, Yeah, I get
playing
confused.
Risk, not Monopoly. Yeah, so I think we're going to talk. Let's get into the Pick-Em, because we're going to have a little bit to say about this Georgia-Florida matchup and the ramifications and what we want to see there. So I say, without further ado, let's pick some games. Producer Cameron, how did we do last week? I already know I probably did bad.
Okie dokie. My little hot.
It sounds
You
perfect.
look great.
Thank you. I'm wearing my Gold Rush.
I'm sure everyone wishes they could see it.
Sure.
I'm sure everyone wishes there was a producer cam.
Last week 8, 3 points for Cameron, 3 points for Kyle, 4 for me, and 4 for the guest pickers.
Well done.
Just
well done,
every
Ryan.
week. Every week, just,
Ryan said he was a great picker, and he backed that up.
That's true.
That brings our season totals to Cameron has 46, Kyle has 48, the guest pickers have 49, and I have 51.
Oh,
wow. What a jerk.
Still technically anybody's ball game
He's
here.
just over there running the show and winning.
Seriously. He's figured something out. Okay.
He's got a formula.
I stopped picking Nebraska.
Flip the script.
That actually, yeah.
Made a big difference. All right. Week 9, our first game is South Carolina at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 14.5-point favorite. Our guest picker is Brian.
I was going to ask you that. Welcome in, Brian.
I always say that after I
That's
announce
all
the
right.
first game.
Welcome in, Brian. Good luck to you. What is this game again?
South Carolina at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 14.5-point favorite.
Yeah, give me A&M. South Carolina's broken.
I'll go
take
last.
A&M.
Oh, what did
Brian
Brian?
takes A&M.
No way.
I'll take A&M. I'll take A&M.
All right. You have like that look in your eyes.
I gotta stay. I gotta stay ready. I gotta stay ready.
Next up is number 1 Georgia at Florida. Georgia is a 14.5-point favorite.
What do we want to happen here? We want Georgia to just win, but maybe it's sloppy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you just want Georgia to win.
Win and a little bit of a struggle.
I mean, Missouri's going to have to beat Georgia no matter what. Most likely.
If Georgia already had a loss to like Alabama or something,
of course,
then I'd be.
Then
it's like
who are the 2 teams they play from the West? Does anybody know?
I'll see if I can find it.
I feel like it's like Auburn and somebody that they will beat.
I mean, they do have like a notoriously easy schedule this year.
They do.
I don't know. I think I want my head narrative to be that Georgia peaked at the Kentucky game when they, put it all together for the first time.
That win was very impressive at the time, but then Missouri basically did the same thing.
Okay. Valid. Georgia already beat Auburn this year only by 7.
Wow.
And they play Ole Miss later in the season.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a game I think they could lose.
Yeah.
So maybe we do want them to have another loss.
I think.
But even if they have 2 losses and Missouri has 2, they still win the tiebreaker. So
True.
Give me Georgia.
Yeah, I'll take Georgia.
Georgia all around.
I mean, it would just be way cooler when we march in there and beat the number 1 team.
I agree. Yep.
Next up is Mississippi State at Auburn. Auburn is a 6.5-point favorite.
Mississippi State coming off the big win.
Oh, yeah.
That was just a
the 4-point win that felt like 35-point win.
That game was 7-3.
7-3 at halftime and at the end. I watched
the second half. It was awful.
Of the second half.
So bad. Arkansas, thank you. Just keep being bad. You're doing great. Who's Mississippi State playing?
Auburn.
2 bad teams.
At Auburn.
Give me Auburn.
I'll take Auburn. Can you go back to the well?
Brian takes Mississippi State.
Okay.
And so do I.
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
Sticking with Mike Wright.
They're going to win.
They will now.
Yeah.
It's been decided. Predestination.
Number 21, Tennessee at Kentucky. Tennessee is a 4-point favorite.
I'll just say, give me Kentucky.
You don't want to give us any...
I got nothing.
Brian takes Tennessee. I'll take Kentucky.
Oh, man. This is at Kentucky?
Yeah.
Jeez. I'll go Kentucky. I literally meant to say Tennessee, and I said Kentucky. Give me Tennessee.
Ooh.
Doesn't feel great.
Kentucky's not going to lose 3 in a row.
Oh, they will.
Oh,
okay.
Be so.
Vanderbilt at number 12, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 24.5-point favorite.
I didn't even hear who they're playing. I'll take Ole Miss.
I'll take Ole Miss. They're playing Vanderbilt.
Everybody's on Ole Miss.
I just heard the line.
You're like, oh, they must be playing Akron?
Just catching strays.
Last and certainly least, Purdue at Nebraska. Nebraska is a 2.5-point favorite.
You got to your lofty perch there by picking against Nebraska.
Yeah, give me Purdue.
Oh.
Am I going to pick Nebraska to win a football game?
I'll do it if nobody else has.
Brian picks Nebraska.
I'll take Purdue.
Give me Purdue.
Ooh.
Wow. I can't do it. I'm changing to Nebraska.
Okay.
All right.
Officially, lock it in.
I can't pick Nebraska.
Me neither.
See, yeah.
Either way, I'll be happy.
Well, see.
That's hedging.
That That doesn't make me feel good. All right.
See you on the gridiron.
See you on the gridiron. Good luck to everybody there. Enjoy the bye week. And let me get my names here. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above. Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Demore, Tristan Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Tim Keens, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Groffalo, Brandon Hanks, Matthew Tilley, Luis Hernandez, and producer Cam Fan. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We love you very much. You can find this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
Thank you, Cooper. I am a Cooper fan. You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. Eli Drinkwitz, you are the father. After a bye.